It is 9:47 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's the 6th day of January on this brand new year of 2026, and this is episode 1232 of Bitcoin, and I'm back. So it's a whole brand new year. Let's see if we can get all kinds of neat stuff going on. 2025 was, well, it was a sludge, right? Except, everybody says that. I've been listening to a lot of other Bitcoin podcasts, and everybody's the sentiment is kind of pathetic, honestly. And think about it this way. If we started out the year at whatever it was, 87,000, per coin, and we were still at 126,000 at the all-time high instead of having that drop on October the 10th, if that hadn't happened, what would sentiment be? What if it flatlined at 126? Would sentiment still be in the toilet like it is right now? Or is it also this issue of all the precious metals going up and having their day? Are we really, really that annoyed with Peter Schiff being happy after all the years that he's waited for this moment? Are we really like that? Or are we better than that? I presume that we are better than that, and I'm happy for Peter. I mean, how would you like to wait 30 freaking years for, a couple of 100% move? Huh? I mean, think about it. Think about it. Actually sit down and go, God, talk about resilience. You can say what you want about Peter Schiff. He's a dick for the whole dancing on Bitcoin's grave, but he always does that. Dude, that's Peter. That's what Peter does. That's what Peter's always done. But I respect the resilience because we always talk about resilience. We talk about anti-fragile. We talk about all these concepts. And yet, the moment this man has his day in the sun after 30 freaking years or however long he's been waiting for this, we get sad. That is not who we are. That is not a gracious state to be in. And if you can't be gracious in this space will probably trash your ass. So let's, be calm. Be cool, be collected. You don't have to be happy for Peter and the gold bugs. But honestly, just trashing, these people, I don't know. It seems out of character for the people that I've known in this space for years and years and years. And honestly, I think it should stop. What are we going to talk about today? Did the DOJ prosecutors violate Trump's executive order for selling the four-footed Samorai wallet Bitcoin? That's going to be first up. And then we're going to talk about Morgan Stanley because they're doing their thing. They have filed for a Bitcoin ETF. Then we're going to move on to Goldman Sachs because they've upgraded and at the same time downgraded a couple of things that represent traditional finance and the whole Bitcoin space. Then we'll do our normal futures and commodities things. And then we're going to get into Venezuela. Do they really have 600,000 Bitcoin? Because honestly, this is the first I've heard about any of that. And some analysts are unsure whether or not that's the truth. And unsure for me basically means unless you can prove to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that they have 600,000 Bitcoin, I ain't buying it. I'm just not. I got to have proof. It doesn't mean that they don't have it, but I'm not going to pretend that they do. And I've seen a lot of people going, "Oh my God, they got 600,000 Bitcoin," and some people are like, "They're going to sell it all." Or the other team is going, "Trump's going to put it into the strategic Bitcoin reserve," and other people are going to go, "Oh, they're going to." Maybe they should, I don't know, give it to the Venezuelan people, like as if they keep it and not immediately sell it themselves. Honestly, this is just it's this cycle of fear, uncertainty, and doubt that we keep feeding ourselves it's not right, and it's sure as shit isn't healthy. And then we're going to talk about Russia and Bitcoin-backed loans, which, if you do them wrong, are also not healthy. And then the last one of the show, the last news piece of the show, is Canaan and a heat recovery pilot program at a greenhouse. Now, you know me. I love the thought of growing food. This is going to be one of my favorite things to read. I can almost guarantee it. But first, we are going to talk about Orange Man. And did the DOJ prosecutors, well, did they violate Trump's order? Let's find out from Frank Corva, one of my favorite writers in Bitcoin news, writing for Bitcoin Magazine. And he says that it seems that the United States Marshals Service has indeed sold the $6.3 million worth of Bitcoin that Samorai wallet developers Keon Rodriguez and William Hill paid the U.S. Department of Justice as a fee that was part of their guilty plea. In doing so, it has potentially violated Executive Order 14233, which mandates that Bitcoin acquired via criminal or civil asset forfeiture proceedings should be held as part of the United States Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. In the Southern District of New York, the federal judicial district in which the Samorai case was to be tried did, in fact, violate Executive Order 14233. It would not be the first time employees of the SDNY have acted in defiance of direction from the federal government. So what happened to the Bitcoin? According to a document titled Asset Liquidation Agreement, which has been obtained exclusively by Bitcoin Magazine and has not until now been made public, the Bitcoin that Rodriguez and Hill forfeited is to be sold or already has been. And then, because Frank is a great journalist, he gives a big old screenshot of the actual text. But let's just, let's get back to what Frank says. He says, as per the document, the defendants agree to transfer $6.3 million worth of Bitcoin, which is 57.55 Bitcoin, at the time the final party signed the agreement, which was Assistant United States Attorney Cecilia Vogelon on November the 3rd, 2025, to the USMS. That would be the United States Marshals Service. The Bitcoin, which was sent from this address, and he gives the full address, which I'm not going to read because a Bitcoin address is unreadable, on November the 3rd, 2025, seems to have bypassed any direct custody by the USMS. Instead, it seems to have been sent directly to Coinbase Prime address, and then they give another Bitcoin address. And this is all because Arkham Intelligence is seeming to say all this. And it presumably, this move was made so the Bitcoin could be sold. Presumably. This Coinbase Prime address currently has a zero balance, indicating that the Bitcoin may have already been sold. If the USMS has sold the forfeited Bitcoin, it's likely has contravened Executive Order 14233, which orders that Bitcoin acquired by the U.S. government via criminal forfeiture, term government BTC, in the EO shall not be sold and should be contributed to the United States SBR. If the Marshals Service sold that Bitcoin, they did so at their own discretion and not as a legal mandate, which indicates that certain members of the DOJ may still view Bitcoin as a taboo asset to be offloaded, as opposed to a strategic asset that President Donald Trump has directed government agencies to retain. Given that the Samorai prosecution originated under the previous administration, which was notoriously hostile towards non-custodial crypto tools and their developers, the decision to ignore the executive order and sell the Bitcoin despite a mandate from the executive branch fits a pattern of treating Bitcoin as something that should be removed from government balance sheets as soon as possible. According to a legal source close with this matter, the Samorai developers forfeited their Bitcoin under 18 U.S. Code 982 A1, which stipulates that any offense that violates the 18 U.S. Code 1960, the statute that prohibits the operation of unlicensed money transmitting businesses, orders that a person to forfeit to the United States any property involved in the offense. Judging by Section 982 and its incorporation of 21 U.S. Code 853C, a criminal forfeiture status or statute that stipulates that property that is subsequently transferred to a person other than the defendant may be the subject of a special verdict of forfeiture and thereafter shall be ordered forfeited to the United States. The Bitcoin that Rodriguez and Hill forfeited fits the EO's definition of government BTC. Neither 982 nor the incorporated 853 requires that property that is forfeited as part of a criminal offense be liquidated. Furthermore, the fund forfeiture statutes cited in Section 3 of the Executive Order 31 U.S.C. 9705 and 28 U.S.C. 524C regulate where forfeiture proceeds are deposited and how they may be used. They do not require that forfeited Bitcoin be converted to cash rather than held in kind. The executive order also stipulates that government BTC falls under the umbrella of government digital assets and states that the head of each agency shall not sell nor otherwise dispose of any government digital asset except in certain scenarios, none of which apply to the Rodriguez or Hill cases, and in all of which the United States Attorney General would play a role in determining what should be done with the forfeited digital assets. When taking EO 14233 and the statute cited in this article into account, the Southern District of New York seems to have acted in a manner that defies the executive order's mandate to transfer Bitcoin obtained via criminal forfeiture to the SBR. This would not mark the first time that the SDNY has acted in such a manner. The judicial jurisdiction, sometimes colloquially referred to as the Sovereign District of New York, has earned a reputation for operating independently and unilaterally despite being part of a federal system. The fact that the SDNY proceeded with the cases against Rodriguez and Hill as well as the case against Tornado Cash developer Roman Storm is further evidence of this. On April the 7th, 2025, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche issued a memo entitled Ending Regulation by Prosecution, in which he stated, quote, "The Department of Justice will no longer target virtual currency exchanges, mixing and tumbling services, and offline wallets for the acts of their end users." End quote. The SDNY seemed to disregard the language in that memo, though as it proceeded with the Samorai wallet or Tornado Cash cases. And when the defense team for Hill and Rodriguez learned, as per a Brady request, that two high-ranking members of the United States Department of the Treasury's Financial Crime Enforcement Network strongly suggested that Samorai Wallet was not serving as a money transmitter due to the non-custodial nature of the service, the prosecution, they proceeded anyway. When it comes to criminal cases tried within the federal court system, over 90% of defendants are convicted and sentenced, with as little as 0.4% being acquitted some years. And the prosecution for SDNY cases has a reputation for having an even higher win rate. Rodriguez was aware of these statistics, as well as the fact that Judge Denise Cote, the judge who presided over his and Hill's cases, has a reputation for harsh sentencing. He told me as much the morning before he pleaded guilty to the conspiracy to operate an unlicensed money transmitter business charge. Many Bitcoin and crypto proponents who voted for Trump in 2024, as well as the crypto industry, which supported the president in his re-election, are now beginning to question whether or not President Trump really does want to see an end to the war on crypto. For this to happen, the DOJ under President Trump must honor what is mandated in the executive the executive order 14233 and follow Deputy Attorney General Blanche's guidance to stop prosecuting developers of non-custodial crypto technology. To the latter point, Trump recently stated that he is considering a pardon for Rodriguez. His pardoning Rodriguez, as well as having the DOJ look into why it sold the Bitcoin that the Samorai developers forfeited, would send a signal that the president is quite serious about his pro-Bitcoin and pro-crypto stance. That's the end of Frank Corva's article, which is good coverage. So, his pardoning Rodriguez, as well as having the DOJ look into why it sold the Bitcoin. Dude, all they have to do is say, did you sell the Bitcoin? If the answer is yes, then the person responsible at the DOJ for that sale, whether or not it's part of SDNY DOJ or the federal government DOJ, because apparently there are two worlds there. And that's becoming very, very clear. SDNY, first of all, needs to get the fuck under control. These people have just become rogue. SDNY is a rogue judicial branch that says they're represented or says that they have a mandate under the federal government to do what they do, but they clearly do not, because they are exercising extra executive decision-making and just violating an executive order. That person needs to be fired. That person needs to be charged with possibly sedition. It's probably a little strong, but you get where I'm going. If none of this shit happens, then Trump ain't serious. And without the support of this industry, he can kiss midterm elections goodbye. And he can already almost kiss midterm elections goodbye, because this economy is just garbage, right? I mean, it's like everything that we see being done doesn't seem to be helping the American public. And everything that is coming out, that the Rodriguez and Hill case by itself, even without the Tornado Cash stuff, is telling me that, we just got lied to. Like any other politician just lies to people to get votes. And then once they get in office, they completely forget about those that put them there. I think that there's a very high potential that this time that might come back to bite him in the ass in a way that literally takes a chunk out of his ass. Doesn't just leave teeth marks, literally pulls meat and fat away from the body and then is chewed up, swallowed, and shat out the other end. This is ridiculous. This man needs to actually stand up for what he told everybody at the Bitcoin conference and says, this is going to stop. And the way you do that is you start fucking arresting people, and not the citizenry, your own federal agents. You remove them completely from their job. You prosecute them at the fullest extent possible, and you keep fucking going. And you pardon Rodriguez and Hill immediately. You completely do away with the Tornado Cash case. And get your shit in line with what you said. Otherwise, you're just lying, and I'm tired of being lied to. Let's move over to Morgan Stanley. They have filed for Bitcoin and another shitcoin ETF, deepening the crypto push. This is James Van Straten and Francisco Rodriguez out of CoinDesk. Morgan Stanley has filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission to launch a spot Bitcoin exchange-traded fund, and Solana Trust, pushing its digital assets ambition even further. The BTC product, called the Morgan Stanley Bitcoin Trust, is structured as an exchange-traded fund designed to track the price of Bitcoin, net of fees and expenses, according to a Form S-1 submitted today, January the 6th. If approved, the fund's shares are expected to list on a national securities exchange under a ticker symbol that has not yet been disclosed. The Bitcoin Trust is sponsored by Morgan Stanley Investment Management and will hold Bitcoin directly rather than using derivatives or leverage. That's important. Let's say that again. The Bitcoin Trust is sponsored by Morgan Stanley Investment Management and will hold actual Bitcoin directly rather than using derivatives or leverage. Its net asset value will be calculated daily using a designated Bitcoin pricing benchmark derived from activity on major spot exchanges. The fund will be passive and will not attempt to trade Bitcoin based on market conditions. So it's just going to hold it. Shares will be created and redeemed only in large blocks by authorized participants, either in cash or in kind. Cash transactions will be executed through third-party Bitcoin counterparties selected by the sponsor, and retail investors will be able to buy and sell shares on the secondary market through brokerage accounts. Morgan Stanley's filing follows the rapid expansion of the spot Bitcoin ETFs in the U.S. market over the past 2 years. So Value, which is actually a company, I guess, So Value data shows these now have 123 billion in total net assets, equivalent to 6.57% of Bitcoin's total market cap. And since the start of the year, net inflows of these products have topped $1.1 billion. Let's say that again. In 6 days, net inflows to these products have topped $1.1 billion. I'm not really seeing a whole lot about that number. That's a big number for 6 days. But Morgan Stanley has also filed a Form S-1 with the SEC for the Morgan Stanley Solana Trust. I don't care. I simply do not care. It's not worth talking about Solana, and that's what they talk about for the rest of the article. So we're done. I'm tired of Solana. I'm tired of Ethereum. I'm tired of the shitcoin, the altcoin market. It's just garbage. And if you're still dabbling in it, consider other life choices like washing your hands with handmade tallow soap from my friend SoapMiner over at SoapMiner.com. That's SoapMiner.com. If you want good soap, really good soap, go to SoapMiner.com. Make sure you use the code Bitcoin and for 10% off, and you will find yourself in possession of the finest handmade tallow soap. And he's got all kinds of soap, in fact. He's got cedarwood tallow. He's got pine tar tallow soap, goat's milk. He's got lemongrass and orange clove and lavender and tea tree and peppermint. I mean, he's got all the soap. And what's in this soap? Well, his rough cut tallow soap is basically soap with no flavoring or scents, or, any kind of colors. It's just white soap. And there's 3 ingredients. It's 100% beef tallow, right? Grass-fed beef tallow, distilled water, and lye. Those are the 3 basic ingredients of any soap. Now, if you go and look at the ingredient list on like a bar of Dove soap, be prepared to be shocked at how much shit you can't pronounce. I can pronounce 100% grass-fed beef tallow, distilled water, and lye all day long because this is how we've been making soap for probably a couple of thousand years, maybe longer. I don't know when soap was invented, but soap is soap. It does one thing. It cleans your dirty hands and your dirty body. It gets your oils off. And this guy does it the best. I've got a bar of soap that lasted my family of 4 for 2 months, and it cost about $7.50. Yeah, $7.50 seems like a lot to charge for a bar of soap. Yeah, you think a bar of Dove soap or Irish Spring is going to last you 2 months? I don't think so, pal. Plus, parabens, pyrothirdins, AC3 number 4 polyphenol, whatever. I'm just done with all that crap. Now, this all said, please send your prayers to SoapMiner. He did something to his arm. He's kind of lost some movement in his arm. I'm not sure what happened. He had some kind of freak accident is what he said. So he may be delayed on orders, but show SoapMiner your support and go ahead and order soap. It will drive him to get better. And we all want Bitcoiners healthy. So go to SoapMiner.com, show him love. And show me love by using the code Bitcoin and to get 10% off your entire purchase, because this is the Circle P. It's where I bring plebs with goods and services just like you to plebs just like you who want to buy said goods and services, but you're going to buy it in Bitcoin, because if you're not selling it in Bitcoin, you're not in the Circle P, like SoapMiner.com. Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is like the way that I usually try to say it. They've upgraded Coinbase, but they downgraded eToro, and well, here's why, according to Andre Bagonsky out of Decrypt. Goldman Sachs analyst upgraded Coinbase to buy from neutral on Monday, arguing that products unveiled by the exchange last month are making it more competitive. Although Coinbase's recent embrace of prediction markets showcased efforts to expand into growth areas, the analyst, led by James Yarrow, described the addition of services already offered by some of Coinbase's competitors as among the most significant. Quote, Coins, which they're referring to Coinbase, Coins' recent new products across traditional brokerages, digital consumer and business banking, digital wealth, and tokenization make it substantially more competitive against neo-brokers who already offer the full suite of traditional and crypto products, the analyst wrote. Yarrow's team raised their price target for Coinbase to $303 a share. That's up from $294, and Coinbase's shares rose 8% on Monday to $255, according to Yahoo Finance. The jump came as Bitcoin climbed above 94,000 and hit its highest point in over a month, according to CoinGecko. In terms of annual revenue through 2027, the analyst forecast a compound annual growth rate of 12% for Coinbase compared to 8% for its peers. They added that Coinbase's growing exposure to infrastructure businesses could make its earnings less volatile. The analyst attributed above-average revenue growth to Coinbase's scale and brand recognition, noting that it has around 9.5 million monthly transacting users. Not 9.5 million transactions per month, but users. Holy crap. At the same time, Coinbase accounted for 5% of total global spot crypto trading volume in 2025. Historically, Coinbase has derived a majority of its revenue from transaction fees. But the analyst noted that around 40%, not 4, but 40% of its money now comes from subscriptions and services. That segment includes its custody and staking businesses as well as income from stablecoins. Quote, we see an attractive entry point for coin and higher valuation over time as it shifts from cyclical to structural growth, the analyst added. When Coinbase announced last month that it was rolling out traditional stock trading to customers, the company described it as a precursor to tokenization, and at the same time, the company introduced a service to help other firms issue digital representation of securities. Now, aside from Coinbase, the analysts signaled that they remained positive on Robinhood, Interactive Brokers, and Figure Technologies as crypto-related firms, but they downgraded eToro to neutral from buy, while lowering their price target from $39 a share and that's down from $48 a share. Damn, that is a hell of a downgrade. The analyst said eToro's renewed expansion in the U.S. could be challenging, given the similarities between its offerings and competitors. Still, they see the company's long-term growth trajectory as favorable, considering its foothold in European crypto markets. So that's the end of that article, and what do I have to say about that? Goldman Sachs upgraded Coinbase and downgraded eToro. eToro is a hell of a lot older than Coinbase, and it's traditional finance. Generally speaking, I mean, they're, as far as I know, they've gotten a little bit, their feet wet a little bit into the crypto sphere, if that's what you want to call it. But traditionally, eToro is TradFi. It's that's what eToro's been around for a long time. Yet Coinbase gets upgraded even after we had the October 10th event where Bitcoin just kind of like fell off a cliff. And we've been struggling, ever since. It's a long, grueling time if you've been in Bitcoin for as long as I have, since 2015. I've seen this several times. It hurts every single time. It gets a little bit better, but it's still, October the 10th hurt. It sucked. There's just no sugarcoating that. But here we are, 6 days into the new year, And even though I don't like Coinbase, they got upgraded. TradFi got downgraded. Kind of bullish. Let's run the numbers. CNBC, futures and commodities, and energy struggling still. I was away for like 3 weeks from this podcast, and I always do the traditional markets in the middle of the show so that we can have like some kind of comparison as to what, how it relates to Bitcoin. And energy has just been bitch slapped every single day. And today is no freaking different. Brent North Sea down a point to 61.16. West Texas Intermediate down 1 1/4 to 57.61 a barrel. Natural gas taking it between the legs, 3.8% to the downside, resting now at $3.39 per thousand cubic feet. Gasoline is down 1/4 to $1.71 in Murban crude, down 1.17% to 61.06 a barrel. As you might imagine, shiny metal rocks glistening in the sun. Palladium up 6.5 points. Gold is up just over 1 point to $4,498.40. Platinum is up 7%. And I have my wedding ring is platinum, not silver, not gold. My wedding ring is platinum. Why? Because it's denser than gold and you can feel it. And you want to feel, if you're married, you want to feel your wedding ring. Now, if you hate your spouse, that might suck, which is why you should endeavor to figure out ways to love your spouse. I love my spouse, and I love the fact that when I wiggle my left hand, there's a lot of weight because palladium has much more density than gold does. I like platinum better than I like gold. Silver is up 6% to $81.32. Holy shit. And copper is up 1 1/4. Ag is mostly in the green today. Biggest loser is chocolate, 1.4% to the downside. The biggest winner is coffee, 3.7% to the upside. And I guess if you're a coffee drinker, that makes you a loser because you're going to be paying more for your Java. Then we got live cattle, which is basically sideways. Lean hogs down almost 1/4 point. Feeder cattle up 0.67%. The S&P is up 0.5 point. NASDAQ is up 0.7. The Dow is up 0.8%. And the S&P Mini is up 0.9%. And meanwhile, here we have Bitcoin struggling again at $91,760. That's because it hit $94,000. And apparently a whole bunch of people said, I'm out. $1.83 trillion market cap. We can only purchase 20.3 ounces of shiny metal rocks with our one Bitcoin, of which there are 19,972,166.78 of. And average fees per block remain the same as 3 weeks ago, 0.02 BTC, taken in fees on a per block basis. There are, 22 blocks carrying around 50,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear at high priority rates of 1 Satoshi per VByte. Low priorities get you in at 0.2. Now, mining. Wow, we're still in zettahash territory. Killer. 1.04 zettahashes per second is the amount of security that we have on the Bitcoin network. That's more than enough. For anybody who thinks, like I was kind of thinking that I'm waiting for the mining death spiral. It just doesn't seem to be coming. Now, from Pardon Me, which was, like 2.5, 3 weeks ago, I think I put that up on the 16th of January or December, and we were gone on the 17th. And my numbers fell off a cliff. So I've only got Permanerd with 210 says hi. I got Eternal Student with 150 sats says keep up the good work. Yodel with 555 says been a while. Howdy. Mr. Sat Stacker with 1,000 sats says nothing. Jay with 2,100 says thank you. Pickle Dan with 500 says nothing. And C4OZ with 2288 says, great show. Is it LNPC? I think it's either LNPC or INPC with 5,000 sats says, cheers. And Paul Cernine with 500 says, thanks for another episode and have a splitted Christmas break. I did. It was actually one of the best Christmases that I've ever had. It was just everything about the food that we made, the beauty of being in the San Juan Mountains, which is southwestern Colorado here in the United States. Everything. The only thing that was missing was snow. Yeah, it didn't snow. So the first time that one of the very few times that we did not have a white Christmas in southwestern Colorado, but I didn't care. It's beautiful in that area of the country. If you've never been to the San Juan Mountains, you have to go. I've been all over Colorado. I've been to Grand Junction. I've been up to Black Canyon, which is honestly beautiful. I've been to Aspen in the Snowmass area. I've been to Denver in that area. Nothing holds the sheer beauty of what you think of as Colorado as the San Juan Mountains. That's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. Analysts are unsure if Venezuela has a 600,000 Bitcoin reserve. Yeah, I'm unsure about that shit either. Honestly, I'm calling bullshit just as a gut reaction, but I also don't know. I don't have any hard evidence, but I think 600,000 BTC being held all this time by Venezuela without selling any of it, I think that's highly unlikely. But let's find out from bitbo.io, and I don't have an author line here, so I don't know who wrote it. Speculation about a secret Venezuelan Bitcoin stash resurfaced after reports tied to the U.S. capture of President Nicolas Maduro. Investigative journalist Bradley Hope claimed that Venezuela may have converted gold into Bitcoin over several years, potentially building a reserve worth up to $60 billion. Hope wrote that sources described a Swiss lawyer controlling wallet access and raised questions about the role of sanctioned Venezuelan official Alex Saab. The 600,000 BTC figure is not based on on-chain evidence. Let's say that again. The 600,000 BTC figure is not based on on-chain evidence. Instead, it is described as a mathematical estimate linked to Venezuela's gold sales since 2018, including a reported 73-ton sale that year. Trackers cited in the report suggested Venezuela has accumulated about 240 BTC since the year 2022, but that figure is also in dispute. Whale Alert co-founder Frank Weert told Cointelegraph, quote, if they actually possessed 600,000 Bitcoin, then they managed to fool a lot of blockchain analysts, end quote. Weert also cautioned that the 240 BTC figure is not always backed by verifiable transactions. Major blockchain intelligence firms have not presented evidence of large undeclared Venezuelan Bitcoin holdings. TRM Labs' Ari Redboard said the Maduro government has experimented with digital assets for years, including, of course, the launching of the oil-backed Petro in 2018, which had completely failed even out of the gate, but whatever. Redboard said state entities were directed to use digital asset payment mechanisms for oil-related and cross-border transactions. TRM Labs also reported Venezuela ranked 11th among the top 20 countries for digital asset adoption in 2025. Nansen research head Arali Bothri, I can't pronounce any of these names, said attribution is difficult due to fragmented wallets and offshore over-the-counter brokers, and that's the end of the article. So I highly doubt that Venezuela is chilling out with 600,000 Bitcoin, Because not only would it have fooled a lot of on-chain sleuths, because there are people that basically do that all the time now and been doing it for years, it would also show a level of maturity, even as a country, or let's just not even as a country. Let's just say the government structure of a country. It would show a level of maturity that is really hard to come by anybody in this space. There's not a whole lot of people that can hold that much Bitcoin and just not sell it. I also find it dubious that the Maduro regime would sell gold into Bitcoin, because that shows a level of economic awareness that I don't think the Maduro regime would actually have. I think they cratered their country's economy. I think they destroyed the lives of Venezuelans from one end of that country to the other. Do I agree that the special forces of the United States went on sovereign ground to go pull this guy out of his house or wherever the hell they found his ass at and fly his happy ass and his wife's happy ass up to, of course, I guess the Southern District of New York to stand trial for drug charges and gang-related activities, and he'll probably drop a terrorism charge on him because that's pretty wrapping paper, right? No, I don't. Do I think Maduro is a good guy? No, I don't. I think, if anything, here's the way that I kind of would have handled it. Special forces go into sovereign ground in Venezuela and get Maduro. And then take him out into the middle of the streets in Caracas and let the public have their way with him. The Venezuelan public. Not bring him up here, because it's bad enough that the United States just waltzed into Venezuela. And while it was a good op, because from what I understand, no, I don't think any shots were fired. And from what I also understand, nobody was killed. That essentially it was like a picture perfect black ops operation. So kudos for being able to execute something like that on foreign soil. But dude, we can't go around just doing shit like this. Honestly, I know that Maduro's a bad guy. That's why I'm saying, if anything, he should have just been delivered to his own people, the public, not his army. Because they would have just said, okay, well, here, you go back to your palace and do what you've always been doing because you're taking care of us and we love you. And as long as we're rich and everybody else is poor, we don't give a shit what you do. No. He should have been taken to the fucking slums of Caracas. And then big, huge speakers on Black Hawk helicopters announcing in Spanish that Maduro is at this exact location. And hold him there until enough of his own people get around him that he can't escape, and then extract our black ops guy. Let them deal with it. He's their guy. He's fucked them. They need to be able to fuck him back. Bringing him up here, in my opinion, is bad juju. Now, I get that there's going to be a lot of people that completely disagree with that. However, how would you like it if somebody came into your home and stole one of your people, even if you didn't like him? It's like your brother-in-law who's been crashing on the couch smoking weed for 100 years, and not getting it, not doing what he needs to be doing. And how would you, even though, hey man, that's my guy. I get to screw with him. You don't get to say anything about that shit. So I think it's bad karma. It's bad juju. I sure maybe nothing will happen other than Maduro goes to prison and we get to install whatever government we want down in Venezuela, and Colombia will be next because their president is, rattling his saber about bullshit about how, well, it's not bullshit. He's actually correct. It's just that he's mad that we took Maduro. I get that. Except listening to him talk about it, I don't think he actually gives a shit about Maduro. I actually don't think he gives that much of a shit about Venezuela or the Venezuelans either. I think he's doing it to curry favor amongst his own people, and the president of Colombia ain't exactly a good guy either. Does that mean that we go get him? I think that's I think this is all bad. I don't think this is going to work out the way that we want it to work out. Maybe it will in the short term. But at one point or another, the people of these countries are going to have to figure out what to do for themselves. Their governments, we've been fucking with Latin American governments for decades. And look at the state of Latin America. Do you think that the state of Latin America is a, quote, good state to be in? No, it is not. And a lot of that is our fault. We've been fucking with Chile. We've been fucking with Peru, screwing with Venezuela, screwing with Colombia, screwing with Argentina. The only thing that I think we haven't had our mitts in very well is Brazil, but I don't know. Who knows? Like in all the Central American countries, it's the same shit. We just keep doing this. And it's not good for these people. It hasn't been good for these people in 100 years. We gotta stop. And people also have to stop gambling, especially on Polymarket, because now Polymarket has added taker fees to the 15-minute crypto markets to fund liquidity rebates. This is from The Block. Naga Avan Namoyo is writing this one and says, Polymarket has introduced trading fees on a subset of its crypto markets, a shift for the prediction market platform that has historically operated without charging users to trade. It's going to get worse. The more fees are coming, I guarantee it. Just stop gambling and you won't have to pay the fees. The change applies specifically to Polymarket's 15-minute crypto markets. Those allow users to place short-term up or down predictions on crypto assets that resolve every 15 minutes. Currently, such markets cover Bitcoin and shitcoins. There's actually 4 in total cryptocurrencies that thing covers, and they are designed for quick turnovers rather than long-term forecasting. In updated trading fee documentation, Polymarket said that most markets on the platform remain fee-free, but its 15-minute crypto markets, well, now those carry a small taker-only fee. The platform said the fees are collected to fund a maker rebates program with proceeds redistributed daily in USDC to market makers to improve liquidity and tighten spreads. Polymarket also confirmed that deposits and withdrawals of USDC remain free of charge, though users may still incur fees from third-party on-ramps or intermediaries, and specific fee amounts were not disclosed, though the documentation suggests fees may reach up to 3%. It's like a Visa card transaction. Quote, fees scale with trade size and vary along the probability curve. The highest fees are at 50% probability. Fees decrease towards the extremes, when you get to 1 or 0% and 100% certainty. An excerpt from the Maker Rebates Program page read, while Polymarket's political and event-driven markets continue to dominate overall volume, the short-term duration or short duration crypto markets have become a high activity niche since launching in late 2025, attracting algorithmic traders, bots, and market makers seeking to arbitrage mispricings in quickly resolving contracts. The fee change follows Polymarket's first update to its public exchange fee module on GitHub in nearly 5 months, signaling a deliberate adjustment to market structure as activity in these products have grown. I want to say something about this 15-minute market. And what they say here, the short duration crypto markets have become a high activity niche since launching in late 2025, attracting algorithmic traders, bots, and market makers seeking to arbitrage mispricings in quickly resolving contracts. The mispricing, the arbitrage, the mispricings in quickly resolving contracts is the one that I'm most interested in, because it really reflects what Polymarket can actually do. And I'm not saying what they do is good. It's gambling, right? It's gambling. But Polymarket acts as a bridge, in a way, between something like a Coinbase Bitcoin price versus a Kraken Bitcoin price. So let's say Coinbase you can sell Bitcoin for $100 more than you can sell it on Kraken. Well, if I do that, if I sell like a lot of BTC on Coinbase, by the time I get it over to Kraken, especially if my sale is large enough to affect the market, then I cannot buy Bitcoin. I might be able to buy Bitcoin at a lower price on Kraken, but by the time it gets there, God only knows what happens to the freaking markets, because it's going to take longer than 15 minutes for me to shuttle that from one exchange, that sale from one exchange to another. Okay, so in comes Polymarket. Well, now I don't actually have to sell Bitcoin on Coinbase and buy it on Kraken to take advantage of the arbitrage, right? Or take advantage of the mispricing. What I can do is I can just make a bet on Polymarket, and I can kill two birds with one stone. Believe me, I don't think this is a good idea. If you fancy yourself as a day trader, then please fancy yourself as dead, because you're not a good day trader. You're not. I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm not trying to say that you're dumb. I'm not trying to say that you have no capacity whatsoever to do this. I'm saying, I guarantee you have better fucking things to do with your goddamn day than to worry about this shit. Go love your children. Go love your spouse. Clean your house. Plant a tree. Well, okay, it's midwinter. It may not be the best time in the world to plant a tree, but it's actually better to plant a tree in the fall, let it overwinter, and then come back in the spring. If you are planning on planting trees, do it in the early spring. But I digress. I'm just saying, this is just gambling. The fact that it acts as a transformer between one exchange and another only seems to make it even more risky, insofar that if you're not really good at this, and you probably aren't, because, unless you're just, that's all you do for 18 hours a day, you're probably not good at it, and you're going to lose your Bitcoin. Please, for the love of God, consider the children, consider the Bitcoin. Russia's definitely considering the Bitcoin. And how do I know? Well, from Atlas 21 that says Russia. Sberbank launches the very first Bitcoin-backed loan in Russia. Well, at least for Sberbank, which is, arguably Russia's largest bank. But Sberbank, which is Russia's at least largest lender, has issued the country's first loan secured by Bitcoin. That's it. I mean, it's like Russia. Their largest bank has issued a loan secured by Bitcoin. I mean, I don't know how many times I need to say it for that to, be an impressive statement all by itself, because it's Russia. Anyway, the financing was granted to Intellion Data, one of the leading Bitcoin mining companies operating in Russia, as part of a pilot transaction, and the bank confirmed that the loan was collateralized directly by the Bitcoin that was mined by the company. However, Sberbank did not disclose specific details such as the size of the loan or the contract's duration, stressing that the transaction remains at an experimental stage. In an official statement, the bank highlighted the potential for this type of financial product. Quote, "We believe this product will be relevant not only for cryptocurrency miners, but also for companies that own cryptocurrencies." Sberbank also said it will consider issuing additional loans of this kind if the model proves effective and sustainable. To ensure the security of the collateral, Sberbank used RUTOKEN, RUTOKEN, its proprietary solution for digital asset custody. According to the bank, the system guarantees full protection of the cryptocurrency throughout the life of the loan, keeping the collateral under the institution's control until the borrower fully repays the financing. Timothy Semenov, CEO of Intellion Data, described the agreement as a milestone for Russia's mining sector. Speaking to RBC, Semenov said that the loan represents a fundamental practical example of how cryptocurrencies can be effectively integrated into the traditional financial system, signaling that the market is, quote, reaching a new level of maturity. If the form of financing proves effective, crypto collateralized lending could be expanded and used more broadly across the Russian mining industry, the CEO added. Sberbank executives have they have framed the pilot loan both as a test of an innovative financial product and as a regulatory experiment. And Anatoly Popov, the bank's vice president, noted that Russia's digital asset regulation is still in its early stages and that this transaction allows Sberbank to access the legal and technical frameworks required for banking services backed by digital assets. Quote, "This pilot deal allows us to test mechanisms for working with digital security, which could form the basis for future regulation," Popov said, adding that the bank is ready to cooperate with the Central Bank of Russia to develop appropriate infrastructure and controls. Popov also revealed that Sberbank already offers structured bonds and digital financial assets linked to Bitcoin and a basket of shitcoins, and is currently testing decentralized finance instrumentation. Okay, well, good luck with that, because have fun on Sushi Swap there, Sberbank. Still, that's big news. I wish we did know the details. How big of a loan? How much BTC? What's the like? Did you loan 50% against it? Did you loan 75? Did you only loan 25% against the BTC? And my biggest question, what's your yield? Because this is where the yield comes in traditional ways. This is actual yield. This is yield, not that I can get behind it, but I understand it. I can wrap my head around the fact that, hey, I got money. You need money. You can borrow my money so that you can go start your business or do whatever the hell it is you're going to do, but you're going to pay me for the time that I don't have my money. I'm offering you a service. I'm offering you money. I want 3%. That's yield. I can understand that yield. I know where that yield comes from, and it's actually legit yield. It's not, it's kind of against, the old Hebrews, the Hebrews of the Bible hated this shit. Any kind of yield, bad. Abrahamic law is very fucking clear. And Abrahamic law is what gave rise to Judaism as well as Islam. And if you don't know the story behind that, I'm not going to go into it today. But both those religions, both are Abrahamic religions. And then Christianity fell out of Judaism, right, because of Jesus Christ. But you're not supposed, you can make a loan, but you can't make money off of it. That's sort of the way that works. The Abrahamic law basically is like, nah, you can't do yield. Well, that's kind of fallen by the wayside. Yes, we get yield, but at least we can understand it. It's not like, hey, I've got this shitcoin I just released, and if you stake it, you'll get 7% yield. I don't know where that yields comes from. I have no idea what that yield is. What does it even mean? Well, first of all, it means it's a scam because you don't know where the yield comes from. In this particular case, this loan makes sense. I'm giving you cash. You're collateralizing it against this Bitcoin. I want whatever percent. That's the other part of the story that we don't know about this loan. We don't know the amount. We don't know the how much Bitcoin is secured behind it. And we don't know the yield for the bank. That's the only thing. Those three things are basically the only things you need to know about any kind of loan. And we don't know any of it. But Sberbank themselves said, yes, they have made a loan. They've made it to this company, and they are directly holding BTC as collateral to collateralize that loan. No matter what else we don't know about it, that's still big news. But now we come to the last story of today's show. And this is probably going to be my favorite. Because as you know, I don't read these stories beforehand. I kind of scan them to make sure that I'm not going to read you something about like a long diatribe about how Solana is great, because I just don't think it is. But Bitcoin news brings us to the whole Canaan launch of a 3 megawatt heat recovery pilot at a Canadian greenhouse. And And we begin. I guess this is in Singapore. Canaan Incorporated, an innovator in crypto mining, today announced a 3 megawatt proof of concept with Bitforest Investment Limited in Manitoba, Canada. Okay, so this is in Canada, but somehow or another, this news report is coming out of Singapore. Canada, this is in Manitoba. It's to recover the heat from an Avalon computing system and use that heat as a supplemental source for greenhouse operations. The pilot is part of Canaan's broader initiatives to make high-density computing operations more efficient through the use of cutting-edge semiconductor chips that create practical energy reuse across commercial and consumer applications. The project will also allow Canaan to evaluate key performance indicators for agricultural applications. This is why I love this story, such as heat recovery efficiency, systems stability, and operating and maintenance intensity under real operating conditions. Under the agreement, for an initial 24-month term, Canaan will deploy an Avalon computing system consisting of 360 units of Avalon A1566HA 460T liquid-cooled computing servers and 4 liquid cooling container modules to be operated by the host. Delivery will follow Bitforest's notice to proceed. Heat captured from Canaan's computing system will preheat the intake water for the site's electric boilers through a closed-loop heat exchange system, thus lowering the incremental energy required to meet target temperatures. The host targets 95% uptime for the Canaan equipment. Based on current assumptions, anyway, Canaan estimates that approximately 90% of the electricity consumed by the computing servers will be captured and transferred to the heating system. Actual performance metrics will be confirmed once fully operational. Subject to actual operating conditions, the computing system is expected to achieve attractive capital efficiency. The unique system is expected to lower capital expenditure by removing the industrial cooling towers, which would otherwise be needed in liquid-cooled data centers. In terms of operating expenses, Canaan also enjoys a very low all-in cost of power. It's 3.5 United States pennies per kilowatt hour, which includes the host's power cost and routine operation. Holy shit, that's cheap. I'll say, so it includes the power cost, routine operation, troubleshooting, and maintenance of the Canaan equipment. God, 3.5 pennies per kilowatt hour all in. Maintenance, operation, troubleshooting. Holy crap. If Bitforest participates in grid demand response or sells power back to the grid, Canaan will share in the economic benefits of such programs, making this proof of concept a true win-win collaboration. Quote, with this proof of concept, we are not just deploying compute equipment for one project. We hope to build a data-driven, replicable model, said Nenzheng Zhang, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Canaan, adding, quote, this program will allow us to measure, model, and scale heat recovery for agriculture in cold climates. Liquid cooling enables us to output high-temperature hot water above 75 degrees Celsius, making compute heat directly usable for greenhouses. The POC, or proof of concept, expands our broader efforts to rethink how compute infrastructure can enhance energy sustainability for households, businesses, as well as industrial partners, end quote. Large greenhouse facilities often rely on fossil-fueled boilers as their primary heat source. Several regions, including Canada, have adopted carbon pricing to encourage lower carbon heating operations in greenhouses. Canaan's Avalon computing system will provide supplemental heat that ties into Bitforest's existing boiler loop. The combined setup is designed to deliver up to 1 million tons of hot water annually by recycling heat from computing servers that would otherwise be wasted, improving overall site power efficiency while reducing environmental impact. Canaan will continue expanding its energy efficiency initiatives including the industrial heat reuse deployments, Bitcoin mining space heaters for home use, and ongoing advances in power-efficient Avalon systems built on Canaan-designed semiconductor chips. This is my favorite story of the day. The amount of heat that we allow to go as waste is criminal. And I'm not talking, it's going to heat up the environment, it's going to kill us all because, global climate change. No. I talk a lot about efficiency and how in certain systems you can become too efficient. In beef and pork and chicken, it's like a CAFO, confined animal feeding operations, is peak efficiency for raising shit tons of protein that is animal based. It cannot be denied. It is peak efficiency, but it comes at a terrible cost. Animal welfare is basically in the fucking toilet. And as long as these animals are not out on the land, roaming and depositing little piles of poop and little pools of urine and pulling grass out of it screws up the ground too. So you get, and then you've concentrated the waste of all these animals. And now instead of doing good out into the soil, it's hazardous waste. So you basically fuck three things right in the ass because of this massive amount of efficiency: animal welfare, toxic waste buildup, and the stripping of land of nutrients. I talk about this in all manner of ways. There are ways to become too efficient. You can go past a point where your efficiency starts to actually eat into other systems, and it no longer becomes efficient. You don't have a balance between these two systems. Peak efficiency for me is the ability to be efficient creating meat and also be just as efficient as delivering nutrients back to the land. Once you pass that point, you're getting more efficient in meat production, but you're destroying land. You can get less efficient in meat production and your land becomes better, right? In this case, when we talk about heat recovery, we are at the lowest end of any amount of efficiency that you can possibly imagine. All we want to do is get rid of heat. When we air condition our homes and we go outside to where the compressor is, and we feel that hot air just flying out, right? And this is always in the summer because you're not cooling your house in the middle of winter. You're heating it, right? But that heat that comes out in summer, it just goes into the atmosphere. We're not doing anything with it. We need to change that attitude. Instead of looking at heat as a waste byproduct that has to be gotten rid of immediately and dissipated, anywhere we can dissipate it, we need to be able to capture it, collect it, save it, concentrate it, and put that shit to use, because heat is energy and energy is power, and power can be directed to do things. And with the amount of heat that we've wasted on this planet over the centuries that humans have been alive is an amount of power that I can't even calculate. These guys are, the pictures that they're showing is a greenhouse, a big one, and it's a tomato greenhouse. Are they generating this stuff regeneratively? Are they using pesticides and herbicides? I'm not even going to get into that. They probably are. This looks like a standard industrial scale tomato greenhouse operation. I don't like those tomatoes because they have zero flavor, but that's a completely different story. At least these Bitforest and Canaan, or at least they're teaming up to solve one fucking issue. How in the hell can you have in the middle of winter tomatoes in Canada by mining Bitcoin? Because of waste heat. And people actually going, let's get some engineers to figure out how to be efficient in collecting all this waste heat. Because as they said in this article, this is going to have ramifications for how we can do things in our homes, at our businesses, and in other industrial types of situations, like simply heating a workspace for workers. Instead of trying to get rid of as much heat as we can all the time, we need to refocus on how to retain that heat and keep that energy and use that energy in a directed way for the good of mankind. And with that, I will see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.